We have all members present this evening. We do have a quorum. At this time, I'd like to introduce Octavia Plummer, a third grade student at Pangbourne Elementary School. Octavia is here to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Hello, Octavia.
Hi.
Do you have some people with you this evening that you'd like to introduce?
I have my mom, my dad, my brother, Miss Perhenick, my teacher, and Mr. Meredith, my principal.
Mr. Meredith? Is that who that is there? Welcome. Thank you for being here and for bringing Octavia this evening. Octavia, what would you like us to know about Pangbourne Elementary School?
It's a very fun school. They give you very fun fundraisers. They give you ice cream for some treats. They have pause cards for rewards. They give you walkathons and just fun stuff there.
So learning is fun at Pangbourne. That's what
Mhm.
I'm hearing. Awesome.
Yeah.
And what is the mascot there that you have? Paws, like PAWS cards?
Pause cards.
Uh-huh.
So we get them if we be good, and when we be good, we get them and we could trade them in for good rewards and toys and all of that.
And do you have a school mascot that it's the paw of? What is your mascot at Pangbourne?
It's like a panther.
A panther, Pangbourne Panthers. So with all this fun, are you learning anything?
Mhm.
You are? What's your most favorite thing to learn and to study?
I love math, actually.
Math. Good for you. Are you a reader? Do you enjoy reading?
Mhm.
Yeah? Have you read any good books lately?
Yeah.
Would you recommend a book?
Mhm.
What book would you recommend to me?
Descendants.
Descendants. All right, I'll make note of that. Thank you. Colleagues, do you have any questions for Octavia? Octavia, it's been a pleasure having you here. Thank you so much for coming and leading us in the pledge and a moment of silence. Good luck to you at Pangbourne. Okay. Our first item of business is the approval of the agenda.
Move for approval?
Mr. Bickford, is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor of tonight's agenda? Okay, we're unanimous and the student member concurs. We move on to approval of the minutes.
Yes, I move for the approval of work session minutes dated Tuesday, March the 6th, 2018.
Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Any additions or corrections to that set of minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? It's unanimous and the student member concurs.
My second motion is for the approval of the closed session minutes dated Tuesday, March 6th, 2018.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Any additions or corrections to that set? All those in favor? Okay, unanimous.
My next motion is for the approval of the business meeting minutes dated Tuesday, March 6th, 2018.
Is there a second? Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Any additions or corrections? All those in favor of that set of minutes? Unanimous, and the student member concurs.
My next motion is for the approval of the closed session minutes dated Tuesday, March the 20th, 2018.
Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Salfer. Any additions or corrections? All those in favor? Okay, 6 and 1 abstention. Thank you.
And my final motion is for the approval of the compliance checklist and written statement for closing a meeting minutes dated Tuesday, March the 20th, 2018.
Thank you. Is there a second? All right, any additions or corrections to those minutes? All those in favor? 6 and 1 abstention. Thank you. All right, that brings us to public comment. We have no one signed up for public comment this evening. Is there anyone who did not have the opportunity to sign up in advance who would like to come forward to speak during this portion of our meeting? No? Okay. So we'll move on then to the superintendent's report. We'll begin with the superintendent's report now and continue after new business. So Dr. Michael.
Thank you, President Williams. Board members, tonight, very excited. We have a number of presentations for you this evening. So we're going to start out with our student athletes. We've had great success this winter with some state championships, but also some individuals that have won as state champions as individuals as well. I'm going to call Eric Michael forward. He's going to share the names of the individuals. Invite the board, if you would, go down and welcome the students. I think someone's going to hang medals on them, and we'll greet them, and then we'll ask them to remain, and then we'll bring them back for a picture.
Okay, I'm going to ask Clear Spring Bocce team to come forward. Okay, before we get started, we have a number of athletes that were expected to be here, but as we know, Mother Nature makes her own decisions, and we've had, obviously, the last board meeting when they were scheduled to be here was postponed because of snow, and now we're into spring season, and we are actually playing some games tonight, so we do have several athletes that aren't here tonight, so we are going to honor those that are here with us. So, first team tonight is Clear Spring Bocce team. They were Division I state champions this year for Unified Sports. Our first athlete tonight is Riley Motes. Anne-Marie Kemen. Anna Crow. And Ari Harmon. Head coach Matt Kemen. And assistant coach Chris Malott. Yes. And I believe that the team has a presentation for Dr. Michael.
Yeah, we'd like to, when professional teams, they win, they get invited to the White House. This is kind of like our White House. So we would like to make Dr. Michael an honorary bocce team member for Clear Spring High School.
Feel quite honored by that. We're going to invite our students and our coaches to go back in front of the board here. We'd like to take a picture of them. Thank you very much.
Any parents that are here that want to take pictures, that would be the time. While we're taking pictures, I'm going to ask Williams Sports Bocce team to come up. Okay, we're fortunate this season to have two of our teams win states with bocce. Williamsport High School was the Division III state champions for unified sports. And Emily Ernst is our representative tonight, and she did not do this on her own. She did have a bunch of team members with her. But Emily Ernst. And with her tonight is our head coach, Jerome Edwards. Okay, and we're going to take some pictures. Any parents? Okay, and our next team is Boonesboro High School boys. They were the 1A state indoor track champions. And with us tonight, again, we have several members that aren't available tonight, but with us tonight we have Ben Hardings. Ben is also a first-team All-County indoor track athlete, as well as a first-team All-CMC, Central Maryland Conference member. Nick Kidwell. Nick is also a first-team All-County and first-team All-CMC. Levi Mason. Levi is second-team All-County and first-team All-CMC. Donovan McClellan. Donovan is first team All-County as well as also first team All-CMC. And Will Stan. And our individual winners, if you want to make your way back, you get to go through again. Our coaches, head coach Becky Walters, and assistant coach Sean Cutzel. Okay, and individuals for this the indoor track for Boonesboro was the 4x8 relay team. And I think we have some of the members here. Levi. That's part of an individual. Levi Mason again. Will Stan. All right, and Donovan McClellan, he has two of them coming here. Donovan was also part of the 800 relay team, 4x800. Donovan was also the 500-meter run champion, as well as the 800-meter run champion. So congratulations, Donovan. And then Nick Kidwell. Nick was the indoor shot put champion for 1A. This team has done very well. This is their second consecutive indoor track championship. And we also like to brag about our academics. As a team, they had a team GPA of 3.60. So congratulations, boys. All right, guys, back up front for pictures. And Boonesborough girls also did a very nice job this year. They had they actually had a relay team win a state championship as well as another individual championship. So tonight with us, they were the 4x800 relay team champions. Tonight with us, out of that team, we have with us Ellie Bear. Ellie is also, she is first team All-County, as well as first team CMC. Cameron Harper is also a member of the 4x800 relay team. She gets 2 because she also won the 500-meter run, so she's 500-meter run champion. Cameron is first team All-County, first team All-CMC, and if you read the paper last week, Cameron is also the Herald Mail Player of the Year for indoor track. And girls, get to come up and get your picture taken. Congratulations to these girls on a fine season. All right, next up we have North Hagerstown High School boys indoor track. We have the 4x800 meter relay. They were the 3A champions in this event. And we're going to introduce the team first. First person is Brandon Gassaway. Brandon was first team All-County, as well as first team All-CMC in the Spires division. Next up is Nate McKenzie. Nate was also first team All-County, first team All-CMC in the Spires division. Next up is Sage Vipond. And Sage is second team All-County and first team CMC Spires. Next individual gets 2. Ben Gazzola. Ben was also part of the relay team as well as the 500-meter champion. You get 2? No, I must be a mistake. That's coaches. That's all right. Coach is up here. Come on up, Coach. This team went 3A championship is very competitive, but also this team set a county record of 8:15 for the 800-meter relay. So congratulations, and you guys may come up front. You guys come up front and get your picture. Okay, again, is making some adjustments here as we go. All right, next up is South Hagerstown. South Hagerstown had 2 athletes this year. The first is if you follow the papers, we've had 2 very good high jumpers at South High, and they kind of go back and forth all the time, beating each other. But indoor track this year, Kathon McDonald ended up being the person that came out on top. So it was how high? 6'6". So they've been battling back and forth, and watch them outdoor too. They're going to go back and forth. These are highly ranked national competitors. So you'll see them not only on the local level, but also at the national level. So Kathon McDonald is our 3A state high jump champion. All right. And I haven't seen, one other athlete, student athlete that was individual track champion was Michaela Klein. I don't think Michaela's here tonight. Michaela is a track athlete from Williamsport High School. She won the 2A shot put championship. And the last student athlete we have with us tonight is Tristan Cook. Tristan is the 1A, 2A, 220-pound wrestling champion, state champion. Tristan is also first team All-County. And with him tonight is his coach, Sean Smith. And while we bring Tristan, you can come on over and get your picture taken. While I bring Tristan over, Tristan is the first state wrestling champion for Boonesboro High School in school history. And that's all the student athletes we have with us tonight. I do want to mention, we do have one student athlete that couldn't be here tonight, Aaron Brooks. We've seen him in the paper. Aaron is at the Olympic Training Center and could not be with us tonight, so I believe at some point we will honor him later in the year when he gets back from that. So, again, congratulations to all of our athletes on a fine, outstanding winter season.
Thank you, Mr. Michael. I know that he'll see that all the other athletes that are probably in athletic events tonight will get their certificates and their medals. We're very proud of all of our athletes, not only those that won state championships, but all those that have represented us well in the winter sports arena. Now it's my honor to call on some friends of ours from the Educational Foundation. Christine would come forward, Sarah, Robin, I'm not sure if Glenn's coming, who else, but invite them forward. BASA is an application process that students go through with the federal government to try to secure additional support for college. And our partners at the foundation do a great job in helping us promote that with our students. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Christine.
Thank you for having us. We've come a few years now to present our FAFSA Frenzy Scholarship winners. With the help of the counseling office and Robin Handler, we decided this year to go ahead and draw the names before we came to your meeting so that we could actually present the winners of the scholarships here at the meeting. So I'll do that in a minute. I just want to recognize the volunteers that we have as the Education Foundation for our event that we hold. HCC provides their space at the Valley Mall and their staff to support the event, as well as Kaplan, recently named Purdue, USMH, of course WCPS, Robin Handler, Beth Moore, and the counselors, the Education Foundation Board of Directors, our community volunteers, and on-track individuals. So without those volunteers, our events wouldn't be possible. We'd also like to thank the FAFSA Frenzy Scholarship sponsors. So these businesses contributed to the Education Foundation on a level that the scholarships were named on their honor. So that's Ewing Oil, Hagerstown Community College, Kaplan University, now Purdue Global University, Columbia Bank, USMH, and Weiss Brothers. So as you know, the FAFSA Frenzy events have been going on since 2014. Those are community events where we help students complete the FAFSA as the federal aid application starting point for Maryland state aid. Any student that we can inform or actually help is a success in our eyes to help them further their education beyond high school. So since we started, we've touched 570 families. That means we've informed them or helped them with the FAFSA, and we've had volunteers donate 535 hours to these events. This year we didn't see as big of a turnout at our events because the school counseling office is doing an amazing job at holding events at the school buildings themselves. We had probably about 30 individuals come in for either help or information during our weekend events. But like I said, Robin Handler and her counselors do an awesome job of getting information to these kids. We're just enhancing the opportunities that they have. So I will call up the winners of our scholarship, and we're going to give them a big check and then cheer them on for their high school graduation and education beyond high school. And I have with me Sarah Vogel is our FAFSA Frenzy committee chairperson. She's on our board of directors. I have a few other board members here, so thank them for being here. So we have, I know that Kyle Haynes from Boonsboro High School is here, so if he can come up, present him with a check. I know that Anissa Gill from Tech High is also here. And I'm not sure if our third winner is Danielle Winier. I think we had to move our date for our meeting, so presentation, thanks to Mother Nature. So, but thank you for having us. Any questions from anyone for us?
I'm sorry, maybe I just missed it. How much was that?
They're $500 each.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I'd just like to thank Christina for all of her hard work and congratulate her again for being named one of Maryland's top 100 women.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
So I too would like to thank Christina and the foundation, the work that they've done to help promote our FAFSA application process. It's very valuable to our students. Also, I'll add my congratulations to Robin and to all of our high school counselors that work so hard. We have hundreds and hundreds of applications that have been completed at this point, and students are receiving federal aid as a result of everyone's work. So your work is very much appreciated. We appreciate the board's work. Mr. Singer in the background, I know many others who try to keep this alive and work hard to help our students secure these funds. So we're grateful for that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
And one more piece of my report before later here in the program. You see some green shirts out in the audience, and for Washington County, green shirts generally, especially on high school, young men and women generally mean South Hagerstown High School's with us this evening. I'm going to ask Mr. Pine to come forward. He's going to make some presentation. These students have qualified for the VEX World Competition. We're also very grateful tonight, and Mr. Pine will mention this a little bit after we introduce the students. We have two representatives here from Volvo who make this possible. We have a great competition here in Washington County. It's been as a result of the efforts of Volvo over the last many years, and we want to recognize them tonight as well. I know earlier today, part of the team, or the team, I guess, that's going on to the Worlds was recognized at the County Commissioners meeting. I had an opportunity to watch that on their live stream, so congratulations on that as well. Mr. Pine?
Thank you, Dr. Michael. We want to thank you for allowing us to present our world qualifiers this evening from South Hagerstown High School. It is Team 9080R Rebel. We have our members present of the world qualifying team along with their robots. That's a world qualifier. Before we begin our presentation, I would like for the other members of the robotics team from South Hagerstown High School to stand up, please, and parents, please. Let's give them a round of applause for all of their. Thank you. I'm now going to have Mr. Custer, the instructor and coach, just give you a little background on what his teams had to do to qualify.
Well, in short, a lot. They started building this robot back in August. They actually started designing it back in May of last year, right after the last World's competition. As soon as the new design comes out, they go into a design phase where they start sketching and researching different ideas, and then they start building. They start building and testing their robot to see how they do. Once they get a design, as you can see here, this is not their first design, not even by a long shot. This is probably seven times rebuilding it to get to this point. They work very hard, and they always are updating it, making it better as they go. And they work constantly. After school, many nights a week, even some Saturdays. The club itself has been going on for 5 years. They have competed in over, let's see, I can't remember, 30 competitions in 5 years. And the first year, we've only did 2. So that's 28 competitions in the last 4 years. To include twice at the world competition, this would make the 3rd one in a row. Last year, they brought home the Teamwork Award from the world's competition for best teamwork. To date, the Rebel Robotics Club and all of their individual teams have amassed over 47 awards in all the competitions.
Great. Thank you. Dr. Michael, would the board members and you please join us in the front for the awards presentation? So we would like to congratulate our winners. We would like to start with Arturo Bonilla. Brett Custer. Sammy Brammer. Catherine Emmer. And then our coach and instructor, Don Custer. With every event, we have parents, support systems, sponsors. Tonight, we'd like to take a few minutes just to recognize our sponsors for the VEX Robotics competition here in Washington County. So if Mr. Pierre Genet from Volvo would come forward, and Ms. Melissa Kutchall. Can we please give our sponsors and our world qualifiers a round of applause? We will ask our team members to come forward in the middle, please, so for pictures. Does anyone have any questions for our world qualifiers?
Better than questions, before your questions, we're going to ask them to do a little demonstration. Last year when they were here, they brought the robot forward, but tonight I wanted the board members to have a little bit of a see of what this thing can do. It's pretty basic. So you either can go back and look over the counter or look to the side, either way. Thanks so much for your support, appreciate it.
Whoa. There we go.
There
Oh,
you go.
nice.
Thank you. Yeah, if board members have any questions, they're welcome to share. In the competition I saw, what, just 16 weeks ago already, they had stacks and stacks of things. So they were, putting things over top of other obstacles, running around the course. Got toolboxes set off to the side with their back made repairs between events. It's quite the competition. It is a lot of fun. We had a lot of middle schools, a lot of our high schools were in the competition. One of the competitions that she's folks participated in. So if you have questions, they'd be glad to answer.
I can tell you, this is not the robot that's going to Worlds. This is the one that got them there. They have already redesigned it twice. And for a much lighter, faster version. And not only is it just these guys designing it, but everybody over there has had input into the Worlds robot.
Yeah, good job, guys. Great.
It's April 25th through 28th. It's actually will be live streamed as well.
Mrs. Williams? Yes, ma'am. Maybe we can get them to invent something so you and I can get around better.
Hey, a lot of hard work goes into what they do. I mean, they are very dedicated. They meet regularly. It's quite the effort. That's all I have for right now. But I have a few other comments later in the program and a couple more presentations.
Thank you, Dr. Michael. All right, we have no old business this evening, so we'll move to new business. And the first item of new business is the consideration of the first reading of proposed changes to policy IKB. Mr. Trotta? Mrs. Fisher?
Good evening. The Policy Committee reviewed policy IKB at its public work session on February 28, 2018, as part of its comprehensive review of the policy manual. The committee recommended some minor changes to the policy, including placing the policy in the updated format. The Policy Committee is recommending the approval of the first reading of policy IKB. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trotta. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move for, my computer just went out. I move for approval of policy IKB on the first read, and the title is homework.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisher. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Questions for Mrs. Fisher or Mr. Trotta?
Just one, was there any discussion about time? You know, one of the concerns parents have a lot of times with homework is how much time their kids are putting into it. Was there any discussion on?
I think we felt that we couldn't really dictate a time. I mean, there's so many different courses, and actually many different types of homework. That we tried to word it so that teachers would be reasonable in determining how much homework their students would have, but we didn't want to put a specific time limit in the policy.
Any other question or any other discussion? If not, then we'll move to the vote. The motion is to approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy IKB entitled Homework. All those in favor of approval? Okay, that's unanimous, and the student member concurs.
Thank you.
Our next agenda item is consideration of the consent agenda. Mr. Bakewell, good evening.
Good evening, President Williams, board members, Dr. Michael. Tonight I have 9 items for your review. These items were reviewed by our Purchasing Review Committee and are being recommended for approval. And staff is available if you have any additional questions.
Is there a motion?
Madam President, I make a motion to delegate approval authority of the bids for natural gas to a committee that will report their decision at a future meeting, to approve the awards and procurements for the Clear Spring Elementary School roof replacement to Allstate Contractor, Inc. at $825,900, elevator maintenance services to Elevator Solutions, LLC at approximately $57,960 per year, the replacement of the planetarium HVAC rooftop unit to Dakin Applied at a total cost of $51,000. Did I say that right? Okay. And 2 Toro Groundsmaster Model 3505 Precision Cut Rotary Mowers to Turf Equipment and Supply Company, Inc. at a total cost of $57,038.40. The repair of outdoor spectator seating at 4 high schools to TJ Distributors, Inc. at a total cost of $232,130. Replacement of the 820 Commonwealth Conference Room HVAC system to Dakin Applied at a total cost of $88,300. Rebuild chiller and controller of North Hagerstown High School to Boland at a total cost of $73,295. And installation, testing, inspection, maintenance, and repairs of fire protection systems to Johnston Controls Fire Protection LP, FKA Simplex Grinnell LP, not to exceed the annual fire and life safety budgets of $375,000 in FY18 and is $300,000 in FY19.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ridenour. Questions for Mr. Bakewell? Discussion? Mrs. Fisher?
I have a couple of questions about 3 different bids. The first one's bid 2, the Clear Spring Elementary roof. We've had some problems in the past with contractors and the minority business enterprise. What assurances do we have when a contractor tells us that they will fully meet those requirements? Is there any way they can actually prove that to us, or I just want to prevent future legal hassles?
Prove that they've actually paid the subcontractors?
Right, that they've,
They report that into Rob Rollins's group. As they finish sections of the job, they report in that they've paid those subcontractors.
okay, so it occurs as the job proceeds, so there's no way to be sure before we actually award the bid that they will do what they say they're going to do.
I don't know if there's any way to guarantee before they do the job, no.
I think they sign statements that they are required to do it by law, and that's what gets them in trouble if they don't. They put their contract at risk.
Then we have to get involved in legal, so I'm just hoping there was some way to avoid the legal entanglements we sometimes get into. The next question has to do with bid 6, repair of outdoor spectator seating. The bid states that work will be, quote, substantially complete by the beginning of the next school year. Substantially, to me, is not satisfactory because football begins immediately at the beginning of the school year.
Right, that's typically just a punch list of things that, Mark Mills and his group would, they would be usable, it just might be cosmetic things at that point, until final sign-off of, okay, we're going to pay the final release of payment. But substantial means that they will be usable.
And my last question has to do with bid number 8, rebuild of a chiller at North High. And this question I'm asking about because of a personal problem that happened with a local company. It was not the company we're dealing with here, but a local company who handles Trane products. About 6 years ago, we contracted to have a whole new heating, air conditioning, heat pump system put in our house. And the company gave us an assurance that the technicians were trained by the Trane company. However, they were not, turns out, they were not trained on the specific equipment that they installed in our house. And it took them 4 months to get our system working. We had workmen in and out weekly trying to get it right. What assurances do we have that this company has their technicians trained on the equipment, since much of this is older equipment? And I wouldn't want the same thing to happen to North High that happened to us.
Bolin Services is actually the service arm for Trane International. So Bolin Services does all of the Trane work, and everyone that works for Bolin Services is Trane certified.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
And we've used them.
We've used them before.
Oh, okay.
Many times in
Yes.
the past, yeah.
Mr. Stauffer, you have a question?
I apologize for not putting this question out prior to the meeting tonight. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but these mowers, Toro Groundmaster Model 3505, how big are they? Are they pulled by a tractor? I mean, $57,000 for 2 mowers, I'm trying to envision.
They're similar to what you'd see on a golf course doing the fairways. They have basically 7 little mini decks. The 2 outer decks roll up. They're about 7 feet long. They do a fine precision. They're roller type mowers, so they are basically used for manicuring athletic fields and grass areas.
I had forgotten there was a picture of them in the thing. I looked at it, sorry.
It's on the back page, so you probably wouldn't have
Any
seen
other
it.
questions?
Yeah, I forgot that was in
Just
there.
real quickly, number 6, what are the 4 schools that are getting the outdoor seating, spectator seating?
It's Boonesboro.
Yeah, Boonesboro High, Clear Spring High, Williamsport High, and the Hancock Middle Senior.
Thanks.
I have a couple questions, if I may, with regard to the roof replacement. Have we used Allstate contractors in the past?
I believe we have.
I believe we have. I think I recognize it. I'm not positive of that.
Not since I've started here, but I don't know if we've used them in the past.
That'd be a Rob question. We
Yeah.
can find out and get back to
Okay.
you on that.
Okay. And my second question is about the mowers as well, and I had submitted that in an email. Just wondering about, sometimes cheaper isn't necessarily a good deal. So are we familiar with this particular brand and its performance and maintenance and
Yes,
all
we
of
are.
that?
We actually compared 3 different types of mowers that were by 3 different manufacturers. They were the lowest cost, but all 3 of the manufacturers that we looked at were very reputable and very high-end for this type of work.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions?
And I apologize, I did look at that picture and realized it, but I did it like about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm old and I forgot, to be honest with you.
All right, we'll move to the vote. All those in favor of approving tonight's consent agenda? Okay, it's unanimous and the student member concurs. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And next item of new business is a consideration, the charge to the Facilities and Enrollment Advisory Committee. Mr. Prue.
Good evening, Mrs. Williams, members of the board. This evening for your consideration is the charge from the Board of Education to the Facilities Enrollment Advisory Committee. This charge was reviewed by the Facilities Subcommittee Facilities Subcommittee at its meeting on March 6, 2018. This charge to the Enrollment Advisory Committee is essentially addressing the attendance zone for the new Sharpsburg Elementary School and any adjacencies that may be affected by that zone. It is the intent of staff to bring an interim report to you sometime this summer for review. We'll continue to monitor enrollment changes as they happen over the next 12 months for a board approval of a final results of the Enrollment Advisory Committee charge in the spring of 2019, a year before the opening of the new Sharpsburg School. And I'll be happy to take any questions you may have.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion?
Yes, I'll move to, for the charge of the Facilities Enrollment Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Gessford. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mrs. Fisher. Questions for Mr. Prue? Any discussion? No. Okay, and we'll move to the vote. The motion is to approve the charge to the Facilities and Enrollment Advisory Committee as recommended in your packet. All those in favor? Okay, 7-0, student member concurs. Thank you. And then we're back to the superintendent's report. So soon.
Thank you, President Williams. Tonight, we're excited to have our outdoor school team with us, and I'll invite them to come forward. Michelle Harmon's our supervisor of mathematics and science, and along with her is our head teacher at the outdoor school, Tim Abe, and Sabine and Eddie are here tonight, so we have the whole outdoor school team here tonight, so that's exciting. They're going to bring you a little update of the outdoor school. We haven't heard much about the outdoor school lately, and we just thought it'd be a nice report to share with the board. So, Michelle?
Hi, good evening, President Williams, members of the board, Dr. Michael. We would like to extend our gratitude to WCPS Schools Administration and the Board of Education for your continued support of the Claudia Kitchens Outdoor School at Fairview and the unique programs that this site offers to our schools, our staff and students, and the surrounding community. In addition to the listed staff on the cover sheet, we would also like to recognize Mr. Wayne Eckley, who is back at Fairview, and Food Nutrition Services, Teresa Smith, nursing staff, Jane Henry and Vicki Dillon, administrative assistant, Darlene Reed, and the custodial grounds crew members, Ernie Hockman, Paul Shera, and John Rubeck. The long-standing tradition of the 5th grade visits to Fairview is a centerpiece of the work that Claudia Kitchen Outdoor School provides for Washington County Public Schools. The visits continue with each elementary 5th grade visiting for 4 days and 3 nights. And during their visit, as you know, they engage in real-world science, they grow in their appreciation of the environment, participate in STEM-related arts and crafts, gather around a campfire, and much more. Generations of WCPS students and parents share this common memory of a valuable component of their education here in our school system. Whoops, too far.
A little delay.
The disciplinary transfer goals that you see listed have been developed for Claudia Kitchen Outdoor School at Fairview and follow the same Understanding by Design template used by all content areas within our school system. These goals are embedded in the 5th grade curriculum within Module 4 of our blueprint. Regardless of the grade level or program, the staff at Fairview design and provide learning activities for students that promote these goals.
This is a general overview of the range of programs that are facilitated through Fairview Outdoor School, from serving the needs of our pre-K through 12 population, to hosting summer camps and assisting with summer school, to being available for community-wide activities and events. Fairview is a Washington County tradition and staple when it comes to providing an ultimate outdoor experience an authentic location for environmental education, or a peaceful retreat location with necessary amenities. The next slide, under outreach, points out professional development for teachers, such as supporting green schools, outreach to schools K to 12 to include supporting summer schools, STEM and literacy, and all the way down to outreach to the community to include our sale of rain barrels and also our support of HCC's STEM Festival.
This slide shows our attendance for last year. We did add pre-K classes to day trip visits. The grade 5 program, of course, is our residential program for all 5th graders. 6th through 12th, that includes day trips, including our AP environmental classes for high school. And then in the summertime, we collaborate with teachers of middle school and elementary school summer camp to provide science education for them, coordinated with their literacy program. And then we collaborate with Clear Spring High School and their ag department for career outreach. And then the next slide just gives you some highlights of our year. We did have all 9 high schools involved in AP environmental classes at the Potomac River with us. We are also reaching out to connect with other counties through the statewide watershed summit, where North High School is sending a team of students who've been doing a lot of long-term research to report there. And then one of our favorite projects is the notebooking project, where we're bridging instruction between what kids do at Fairview and what they do when they return to their home schools. And there's just a little picture of high school kids doing fish surveys.
Our next slide speaks to the communications available through our Fairview program. We maintain a web page through Weebly, but the bulk of our communications occur through our Facebook page. And we actively have parents participating in this Facebook endeavor as they follow the travels of their child at Fairview, typically on a Tuesday through Friday program, as they watch the kinds of activities and lessons that their child is participating in during the course of the week. I did want to also just briefly share a part of a quote from a parent review on our Facebook page, because parents, of course, are very much a part of the program, particularly when they participate as a parent chaperone along the side with their child during the course of a week. I was one of the male chaperones from Rockland Woods last week. I know you and the staff do this all year, week after week, but the weather last week made for what I believe is a different experience than most students have. It could have been a miserable time for them, but you and the staff rallied and made it one of the best weeks of my son Gideon's school career. He has gone as far as to say that when he grows up, he wants to become a teacher at your outdoor school. The staff members are friendly, the curriculum is engaging, and the facility is beautiful. I know that difficult decisions needed to be made last week regarding safety in the ice storm and the wind, and you all handled the situation with grace. Thank you for letting us be part of the experience, and I look forward to 3 years from now when my other son and I can come up to Fairview.
So on this slide, we're looking at collaboration. You can see that we have an active spectrum of collaboration partners and projects that we're involved in at Fairview. We partner with government agencies, higher learning, nonprofits. One of our most active partners is the Maryland Association for Environmental and Outdoor Education, commonly referred to as MAYO. Through that partnership a couple years ago, we were the benefactors of a rain garden workshop and subsequent installation of a rain garden in Fairview, which has greatly helped us with some drainage issues that we've had and also with some erosion issues that have gone on at Fairview. So you can see that our collaboration is something that really is important to us at Fairview, and we hope to keep continuing by adding more partners to our collaborative group.
This slide speaks to our chestnut tree projects, and currently there's one native chestnut tree and 2 hybrids on the property, and we are hoping through collaborative efforts to add an orchard for study purposes with the support of CES and the Gettysburg Nature Alliance, as well as some grant funds that we will be receiving.
You may have come for our Maple Sugar Festival at some point. It's still a big hit at Fairview, and that was just in March. We're also planning for summer camp for art and science the 3rd week of June with elementary, and then the STEM program camp for middle school students that will be the last week of June.
The next slide speaks to our involvement over the years with Eagle Scouts, and we thought we'd try something different and new this year. And because Clear Spring, or Fairview's always been the benefactor, if you will, of the projects that Eagle Scouts have done, we thought, why not extend some of that generosity and the involvement into the home schools. So we currently have an Eagle Scout, Kevin Bowen, working with Mr. Haid, the principal at Lincolnshire Elementary School, that we hope to see result in an outdoor learning classroom at Lincolnshire that would allow the teachers at Lincolnshire to provide kids with meaningful experiences without having to put kids on a bus, and they can just go into their backyard at school and provide them with meaningful science and environmental education.
We are always looking for new and innovative ways to expand our program, including art and including STEM, and with our regular programs is something we really look forward to. We're also looking at offering self-guided tours for teachers that want to sign up to use the facility to teach science on their own, because there's only 4 of us and we can't always meet the needs of every teacher. So we're starting with a couple of classes this spring, and hopefully we'll continue that. And we're also doing some tree planting to enhance our facility in April.
So even though we do have a small staff, we're always looking forward and thinking, how can we grow life at Fairview? And so we do have plans for future enhancements. One of the ones that we're looking at ardently right now is the idea of developing a Friends of Fairview group. And so we started the process of looking at what it would take for that to happen, and, you know, in guidance with board policy, you know, how could we develop a group that could support us financially, support us with doing some of the work to help us. It's tough to get everything done there sometimes with 4 of us. So the more the merrier, maybe, is a way to look at it. But, you know, we're looking ahead. You know, one of the things that we talked about a few weeks ago, we are a green center at Fairview, and we had to send in our application. Every 4 years we do an application. And as our final application, one of the things we had to do was consider our goals for the coming 10 years. And one of the things that we talked about was the idea of, in Washington County, maybe increasing our number of green schools to 25%. So that's going to take some enhancement on our part. But we're always thinking forward and, you know, wondering how can we do these things. But we seem to do it anyways.
As with the planetarium presentation in January, we do extend our gratitude to all of you for continuing to provide these opportunities to all of our students in Washington County Public Schools through the Claudie Kitchens Outdoor School at Fairview. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to share these updates with you this evening.
Okay, thank you, Michelle, and I'm sure the team would be glad to take questions. I've had an opportunity to participate in a few of the events at the outdoor school. Mr. Abe and his team always have something going on. Was there, I guess it was last summer, with the AP environmental team. Very, very interesting group of our I guess they weren't yet AP kids yet. They were AP kids right now. And had an opportunity to talk with them, and there was a team of teachers working with them. But just lots of things, a very unique experience for our students to continue to have. When I was in school, we went to Camp Misty Mount, so the outdoor school didn't exist at that time. But we're very fortunate to have such a facility. But again, the team would be glad to answer any questions the board might have.
Mr. Gessert.
I say I attended one of the best activities up there. It was the breakfast. It was wonderful. Stan and I went up and we had that, but the maple syrup was just out of this world. You guys did an awesome job. It was great. So I thank you for that. It was my first time actually attending the school and getting to meet some of you there and some of, I guess, your staff people that were helping in the kitchen. That was really nice, and it was a very nice activity. So I encourage anyone who doesn't or hasn't been there to make sure you stop up. I see that you have rain barrels. How do you sell them? Just at certain times of year, people can call about those?
We've recently resurrected our rain barrel, that's the best way I can say it, because we identified another vendor. So in the past, we've done rain barrel workshops over the years, and we have, say, 35 rain barrels on stock or in stock. I know that we're looking at the opportunity to take them to the Greensboro Green Fest to see how many we can sell there. But we've put together a rain barrel kit that allows us to make a little bit of a profit that goes back into the program for materials and other items that we might need. But we sell them, mostly through the internet, through Facebook. Yeah.
Very good, very good. So, and I knew I liked you for some reason. I think we must have something in common.
We do.
Yeah, Mrs. Murray.
Question, I just want to make a comment. Over my 26 years working at Salem Avenue Elementary, I got to go to the outdoor school several times. It was always my favorite field trip. And I have to tell you, my daughter went in 90. And last week, when we had the bad weather, and I guess the kids had to come home early, she said to me, they didn't get to play Predator Prey. You never forget it. You never forget your experience. So thank you so much for all you do, because it's very enriching, and even the adults enjoy it. So thank you.
Anyone else? Mrs. Fisher?
I'm just curious, do any other LEAs in Maryland have an outdoor school?
Yes, yes.
Most of them, or just a couple, or?
I know of a number of them. I'm not sure exactly how many counties do. I know Allegheny doesn't, and they use Evergreen Heritage and Rocky Gap for some of their activities. You know, Garrett does, Anne Arundel does, Prince George's, but I can take a survey and find out.
Oh, that's all right. I'm just kind of curious as to, if maybe we were the only one, because I'd never heard of any of the others doing it.
I'd just like to say how fortunate we are in Washington County to have such a beautiful facility, and to thank you for the work that you do. More than a half a century ago, I was a student, 6th grade at North Potomac Junior High School, and one of the pioneers in outdoor education in this county, Alan Shane, was my 6th grade teacher. And that Fairview experience was one that I will always remember. Decades later, I taught at Clear Spring Middle School, 6th grade, and I had the opportunity in the mid to late 70s to take my class to Misty Mount again, because we didn't have a Fairview in those days. We went to Misty Mount. And I got to see a whole different side to students that weren't necessarily successful in the everyday learning environment of the classroom. They just blossomed when they were Misty Mount, out in the outdoors. They learned so many things, and it was a good experience for me as a teacher to be able to see those students in a different environment doing things that they enjoyed and things that they had never experienced and probably would never experience again. So just know that you're touching lives, if you don't already know that, and I know that you do. And thank you for all you do for our students.
How do you say it?
Pardon?
Abraham.
Abraham.
Yeah, so I just wanted to thank you guys for everything. I mean, Fairview is honestly, in experience, is probably one of the most fondest memories I have of elementary school. I went, my little sister went, my little brother went, my other little sister will go, and I have memories of Mr. A.B. glorifying the food. I remember touching the long. Do you guys still have that really long snake, like that really, really long snake?
No.
It was huge. It was huge.
He was just visiting for a while.
I remember making s'mores. I remember being an omnivore in Predator versus Prey. I remember fishing, and I think a kid on our trip got his nose caught in a net. So that was not great, but honestly, it was a great experience, and I'd like to thank you guys again.
I just want to echo that. It's pretty amazing because I would imagine it's only been a few years since you were there. And I don't want to count how many years ago that I was there, but I did go as a 5th grader from Western Heights, and then I believe we went again either 6th or 7th grade as part of TAG, back when we had Talented and Gifted. But we're reading a book at work right now called The Power of Moments, and it strikes me just what the moments are that you're creating for these students, because they're so memorable that even just hearing you make this presentation, just memories are flooding through my head of, I don't want to count how many years ago it was, but back then we walked on a trail and tried to pick out the things that weren't natural that were hidden on the trail. Do you still do that?
We look for invasive plants.
Yes, and I don't think you climb the fire tower anymore.
Oh, we do.
Oh, you do? Okay, good.
Well, the fire tower's back.
That was one of my favorite things. But so thank you very much for all you do.
Okay, well, thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for coming in. You made a lot of people happy tonight. People are smiling.
Yeah.
Fond memories. Our last presentation this evening, Dr. Akers and Mr. Semler are here this evening, just to bring the board and the community up to date on our bullying, harassment, intimidation policy. We want to be sure in this day and age that people know how to report things, how seriously we take it as a school system, any type of bullying, harassment, intimidation. It helps us to have a paper trail on some of this information, and we're able to kind of put pieces together. It helps us get information back to parents in writing. Helps us really have a clear understanding of it. But again, this is a very challenging issue, especially with social media. Our kids' lives seem to go well beyond the student day, but things come into the school system. And we want the board to be aware how seriously we take it, and want the public to be aware how they can help support their child, how they can support the school system as we help young people grow into hopefully very productive young adults, not bullied, not intimidated or harassed, or disciplined appropriately, that they can grow up and be appropriate adults in the future. So with that, Dr. Akers, Mr. Semler.
Good evening, President Williams, members of the board, Dr. Michael. As Dr. Michael said, this report is on bullying, harassment, and intimidation. Mr. Semler and I will explain the definition of the terms and explain how students, parents, or other adults can report incidents of bullying, harassment, or intimidation. We will also explain how administrators investigate and intervene when they receive a report. Bullying, harassment, and intimidation involve purposeful conduct, including verbal, physical, or written conduct that creates a hostile educational environment by interfering with a student's educational benefits or with a student's physical or psychological well-being. Additionally, there's usually a real or perceived imbalance of power between the victim and the offender, and the behaviors are repeated or have the potential of being repeated. And with social media, that's especially true. Even if you stop someone from repeating a behavior, but they've put something on social media, it's very easy for someone else to pick that up and start posting it again. WCPS policy prohibits bullying on school property and at school-sponsored events, and prohibits retaliation against victims or witnesses for reporting bullying.
So examples of bullying, harassment, intimidation would include the repeated, ongoing, and targeted physical aggression, such as hitting, kicking, shoving, spitting, hair pulling, or throwing things. Also encouraging or influencing another person to hit or harm a student. Teasing, name-calling, making critical remarks, or threatening in person or by other means. And Dr. Akers mentioned social media, and typically that's where we see the other means happening through our social media circuits these days. Demeaning or derogatory jokes, and spreading harmful rumors or gossip. Bullying prevention is a necessity for our school system. We consider this to be very critical. We look at professional development, ongoing professional development, in order for administrators and staff to address bullying concerns. We also look at the opportunity to establish a positive culture in school. We have many programs in place, such as PBIS, or Positive Behavior Intervention Programs, or PBIS-like programs, such as OVEAS, Good Standing. And these programs specifically target bullying prevention. We also work with our school counseling departments and our school communities to be collaborative when addressing bullying concerns, but also in the area of preventing bullying. Data collection and monitoring is also very helpful in bullying prevention because it allows us to monitor trends, to look at different areas of when bullying and different times when bullying might be happening. We use this data in order for us to help respond to these concerns and issues and again, to put preventative measures in place. Finally, for bullying, reporting is critical. Dr. Michael already mentioned that we really want students, parents, close relatives, or staff members to be encouraged to report bullying or intimidation or harassment anytime they see or know something that might be happening. We're encouraging people to report this to school administrators or other appropriate staff. The bullying, harassment, and intimidation forms are found online. You can also get them at the school in the main office, and as well as on our the counseling departments, and also in the school handbook. The student handbook has a copy that it's accessible as well.
Okay, so the next 3 slides just show you what the bullying harassment form looks like. The person reporting the incident provides contact information, the names of victims, witnesses, and offenders. The report also asks for the dates and locations of the incidents, a description of the incidents, and provides a list of behaviors from which the person reporting can select to indicate what happened, or they can write a brief description of the incident. The report then asks for some additional details about the incident and asks for whether or not there were injuries, any injuries that the victim may have suffered. When a school receives a bullying, harassment, or intimidation report, an administrator conducts an investigation. If an administrator determines the accused offender did bully, harass, or intimidate someone, the administrator intervenes to stop the behavior from continuing and, when appropriate, assigns disciplinary consequences. This is now, we'll show you the form that the administrators complete for every report that they receive. The administrator confirms the information provided in the bullying reporting form, including the names of victims, witnesses, and offenders. The investigator confirms the steps taken to investigate the incident. For example, interviewing the victim, offender, and witnesses, viewing video evidence, or reviewing a social media site.
Okay, so we have some. Sorry, go back up a little bit.
Yeah,
All right.
sorry. Yeah, also, the administrator notes what corrective action was taken, which for confirmed incidents of bullying can range from a student conference to an alternative placement for the offender. The investigator also notes whether the victim required medical treatment and then signs the investigation form. So for every report that someone reports being bullied or harassed, there is a counter report from the investigation indicating whether or not they found there was actual bullying harassment and what steps were taken, what consequences were given. So anytime I hear of a report or a concern, I can go back and look. You know, if someone says that this has happened multiple times, I can go back and see all the reports and all the steps that were taken during the investigation.
The data that's shared with you today is a reflection of the past 3 school years, starting in 2014-15 and through 16-17 school year. The total incident reports, so these are the reports that were filled out using the bullying investigation form. We believe that there are other instances that are probably, that go unreported. That's why we really encourage people to use those forms to access so that we can make sure that we are appropriately following the steps and doing the investigation. You can see here that we've had a slight rise from 14-15, had a dip into 15-16, but then back up into 16-17. It stayed relatively consistent, but it's going up a little, and we think that some of the increased factors are, the social media aspect has really become an area where we've seen a lot more bullying and intimidation concerns. They also, though, we feel that the awareness and people are reporting a little bit more, so that's good. I mean, we want people to report when there's an issue or a concern. We want that report to come through to us. And then the availability of those report forms are accessible to those who need to get those. This data is also the data that we submit to MSDE. And again, this reflects just the reports that we receive.
Okay, with
Yeah,
that, I think Dr. Akers, Mr. Semler would be glad to respond to any questions. They work extensively with parents when they have concerns with any type of bullying or intimidation effort, as well as Robin Handler stayed not only for the FAFSA effort, but her counselors and other administrators, teachers, everyone kind of joins in the effort to help prevent bullying, intimidation, harassment. But the team would be glad to respond to any questions the board members might have.
Mr. Stauffer?
So many times I hear from people in the public who ask me questions about this, even when I was a teacher. Why does it always seem, I don't know if this is a fact or not, but it seems like many times the victim of the bullying is the one who gets the class changed and so forth. Why aren't there more severe disciplinary actions or actions taken against the bully instead of the bullying victim, it seems like?
Yeah, I think if you looked at the majority of cases where it's truly just a one-sided bullying harassment and not just a conflict between two students, because, sometimes what's reported as bullying isn't actually bullying. If I call Matt a name and he calls me a name and I push him, he pushes me, and that goes on once a month because we just don't like each other, that's not really bullying. But if, I'm bigger than he is, older than he is, and I take advantage of that and I shove him and I push him or I call him names, and then I'm truly a bully. In those cases where, the investigation finds this is bullying an incident, whenever possible, if that's one of the solutions to have a schedule change, whenever possible, we do change the bully's schedule, the person who's found guilty of bullying. It's not always possible. There are a lot of complex issues involved in student schedules, especially when you get into the secondary level. So what happens sometimes is you might change 3 of the classes that a bully has, but one of them just cannot be changed. And so for that one class, the victim's schedule is changed if they agree to do it. And I know it seems, to a victim that, nothing should happen to me, nothing should change for me. It should only change for the bully. In most cases, we're able to do that, but not in all. And like I say, if what's most important for that student's well-being is to be away from the bully, if that's what the student expresses to us, then we will change the victim's schedule, but it's rare.
Where do most of the bullying complaints come from? Is it more in the high school, middle school than
Middle school.
elementary?
Middle school.
Middle school. So elementary would be less and high school second, basically?
Yes, I would say that, but it's very heavy middle school.
What's the general reaction from your experiences as principals and so forth and longtime educators? I assume we call parents in when we have repeat bullying and so forth. What generally is the reaction of the parents of the bully? Do you find you get a lot of support for your actions, or do they make excuses, or what?
Well, it's mixed. Some are very supportive and help us, right away to, correct the behavior. Some have heard the story from their child that, hey, I'm innocent, or he started it, or, whatever it is, and they're going to believe their child over us and what we find in our investigation. And then so those parents would be less supportive. But it is a mix. But I would say most parents are supportive when we present them with what we found in our investigation, and they realize their child may be trying to stay out of trouble at home and not telling them the whole story. So, and then they are supportive.
Because I will tell you, it got very upsetting to me that a few weeks ago, we had the lady from Smithsburg, I've forgotten her name, but she got to the point where she was so upset with our system that she was compelled or felt compelled to take her son and place him in private school. And that was very upsetting to me that the system apparently had failed that young man to the point where she took that action.
Obviously, I can't comment about an individual case.
Right, I know, but I'm just saying.
Obviously, we want to serve everyone well, so.
And the reason I even say that is because she came here before public comment and just disclosed everything and so forth. I realize there are confidentiality things, but she kind of opened that up and so forth. Thank you.
Mr. Gessler.
Thank you. First question is there an online application that somebody can, if they're being bullied, that they can go online and fill out this form? And where do they find that? Is that on Board Docs?
Yes, you can go to Board Docs, just go to the search and put bullying and harassment, and it'll come up, and you can just click onto the form.
And how do we notify parents and students that they can do this online? And then where does it go to once it goes online?
In the handbook, and also we give them there's an actual copy in the handbook that we give every year, and it's online, that is online also. So they have it both in the handbook and online, and of course their schools let them know, and the schools have them available in their guidance office and main office.
Is there posters that we can put up in the schools that say, there's always kinds of posters for stuff, but, information for students who are quiet and they're not the ones that want to speak up because they're being bullied. But if they see, where I can contact or fill out online, it may be a little bit more secure for them to do that instead of going to a teacher, because I will tell you, I graduated in 1984 and I was bullied. And there was other kids that were bullied, and teachers knew it and did nothing about it. And I'm afraid that we're probably seeing teachers not speaking up when they see this. And I'd like to know, what is the outcome for a teacher that does not report this and knows it?
Well, as far as, I don't think, if it fell into child abuse, it would fall under that sort of a rule. Otherwise, it would be a human resources issue. If that were the case, if a teacher knew that a student was being bullied, harassed, and didn't report it, it certainly is an obligation that teachers have, and administrators and counselors and staff.
And Mr. Gessler, to address your question about where the form goes, once it's submitted, it goes to the school administration and to the guidance counseling office.
Do you think it's wise for it to go to the same school and not to somebody here at the CES?
It comes here as well.
It does come here as well? So one of you
We
would
collect them
receive
all.
that?
Actually, Mrs. Handler's office collects them all and collects the data from it. So that's why I say when we can get to them all. But it's investigated at the school. So that's why, we have to make sure it goes to the school so they can investigate it. They receive some that are, like if a student fills one out, or a parent, either one, fills one out, a paper copy, whether they printed it out or whether they came and got a form from the school, they fill it out and turn it into the school, and the school investigates it. And like I say, we collect that data, because, we gave you just the incidents here, but we have to give a very detailed report to the state on the number of victims, the type of bullying, harassment that took place, the kind of interventions that we did, collectively, as a county. So we collect all that data. So when someone, in the case you're talking about, reports it needs to be investigated at the school level. Now, if they feel like it's not been investigated or that the findings weren't correct or whatever, then they either call Mr. Simler or me to look into it. And then, we always get in touch with Ms. Handler, and we get a copy of the forms, and we conduct an investigation with the school to see, what steps were taken and whether or not they were appropriate or not.
Do you ever randomly just pull those reports from Mrs. Handler and you double-check, you two maybe double-check some of them of what's going on? Because I look at those numbers, and I like the fact that you recognize that these were probably low, because I'm telling you, this has got to be low. You look at social media, and I understand there's two sides to every story, but I will tell you what, we do not get a good rap on social media. And I understand that not everything that's out there is probably true, but surely with what you're seeing on social media and this number here, it's got to be really low.
Yeah, I think it's like any other crime that happens out that it's underreported. That more crime happens than is reported. Well, I'm sure more bullying, harassment goes on, and I'm sure a lot of people attempt to bully and harass, and the victims refuse to be victims and handle it themselves. That we never hear about. And then the bully moves on somewhere else, and those kind of things are never reported.
It was just heartbreaking to sit here and listen to that mother, be it true or not. That was a touching story, and I'd hate to think that there's other people out there that we are not doing the right thing.
Mr. Vick?
And I think Mike was sort of asking this, it's possible to report all this anonymously as well? I mean,
You can, and it can be investigated, but obviously that hinders the investigation if you can't go ask the person is a witness and who saw it. But if we get a report, or an administrator gets a report that there's a victim of bullying, then they'll probably go talk to the victim first and say, I understand you may have been bullied. Can you tell me about that? But it helps if someone's willing to step up and tell you who they are and how they know, because not every allegation is true, and the person being accused of bullying, has to have due process. And so having those witnesses and things is important.
and they don't just have to fill out this form to report bullying. It's almost, I think you guys help them fill out the form in some respects, don't you?
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of times we have verbal reports. We encourage the form because it allows the investigation to go through. It allows the information to be processed through multiple people that can address the situation. But no, we receive verbal reports or even emails that come in that might suggest that there could be a bullying incident. This just allows it to be a formalized process to help us go through that information.
And as follow-up, after there is an investigation and a solution is reached, and whether that's a consequence, a change of schedule, whatever it might be, then the administrator who did the investigation has to follow up 2 weeks later and 4 weeks later to make sure that it hasn't started to happen again. So that's automatic part of the process, that there's a 2-week follow-up and a 4-week follow-up.
And all that's why
It's important that people submit the written documentation. They'll get a written response, and they get this follow-up, and it creates a pattern for us. Apologize, my voice is getting weak here tonight. That's why it's important that people to, put what their concern is in writing.
Mr. Reiner?
Yeah, I understand. I mean, this is a lot to go through when you're an upset parent or a child or whatever the case might be. If they call a school, how quickly is that looked into? I mean, is it somebody, if a parent calls you and says, look, my daughter or my son was pushed around and, is being bullied by such and such a person, they tell you that over the phone, for example, how quickly would you look into, how quickly would the school?
Same day, so now obviously you call and there's only 30 minutes left of the school day and you can't get a hold of the witnesses and the victim and the, because, and everybody's a little bit different in the sense of who they like to interview first, but they would do it in the same day that it's received, unless, like I say, it's very near the end of the day and you just can't get to everybody. But, like I say, everyone has their own style. They're, when you're trying to get at the truth of what happened, I prefer to talk to witnesses and the victim first and hear that side before I talk to the alleged offender. So if it happens toward the end of the day and there are several witnesses, it might be the next day before I talk to the offender, because I like to have all the facts around me so I can better question the person alleged of offending. But again, that's my style as an investigator in that situation. But I would say same day.
The same would be that if we receive a call in the central, the same would be if we received a call in central office, that we would contact the schools immediately to let them know what the concern was from the parent.
Would you, if that parent says to you, look into this, I can't come and do the form, or I can't talk to you, would you, what kind of information, would you try to get the information from them over the phone, or, okay.
Yeah, and generally, when they call us, it's because they're not satisfied with something that's happened to the school or not happened at the school. So right away, I would be contacting Ms. Handler's office.
I'm
Yeah.
talking about at
The
the
school
school or
administrator.
whatever. Yeah, very good. Thank you.
I just have one more thing I wanted to ask. Do you think people or students feel comfortable enough to report it now that there's so much awareness, or do you think that they're still holding back?
I think it's a mixed bag. I think probably more than ever, kids feel comfortable reporting it, but I'm certain not all. If I'm the victim of bullying, harassment, and I'm fearful of the person, I probably, hopefully will get the support of my parent, and my parent will do the report. But again, that's, we're sure it's underreported. But I think more than ever, kids are comfortable doing it. And the fact that you can do it at home, do it online, I think helps. Or do it in the confidential confines of your counselor's office, I think helps.
Questions I'd like to ask, if I may. You mentioned in your presentation several programs that are being used. Olveus, and Good Standing. Are these effective? Are we seeing good results from these programs? Do we need to do more of this type of thing in the elementary school? You're mentioning that you're seeing most of these incidents happening in middle school. I'm going to ask you, what's the solution? Do we need more counselors? We've been talking a lot about the need for school resource officers to protect our students from what's outside coming in to do them harm. What do we need to do to protect them while we have them, and to make their learning situations conducive to learning, where they're not fearful? When, I'm hearing that kids who undergo bullying and harassment often have anxiety, depression, PTSD. What do we need to do? What do we need that we don't have? What do we have that we need more of? Where do we go from here? Because, as my colleagues have said, it was heartbreaking to sit here and to listen to that mother. And she was one person who had the courage to come and talk to us, when we know that there are many, many others whose stories we haven't heard. And it's sad, as Mr. Stauffer said, when you know that kids are having their lives altered. First of all, they're undergoing harassment, bullying, intimidation, and then they're made to sit, not made. The solution is often to take them out of a class that they may have really enjoyed, with the teacher they enjoyed, to go to another class, or to have lunch in the counselor's office as opposed to being in the cafeteria with the... A lot of questions all at once, but this is something that's of great concern, and
Yeah, there's no quick fix. I mean, there's no program that's going to fix it. I mean, we're talking about something that has gone on for probably as long as there's been schools.
Absolutely.
And so it is a huge effort. It requires professional development and vigilance on the part of the administration and teachers. It requires that from parents as well. You know, talking to your kids and knowing if they're having a problem, but also monitoring what they do on social media. That, you know, I say this has gone on forever. What hasn't gone on forever is social media. And it is such an
Makes it easier,
instigator.
doesn't it?
It makes it easier. It's easier to say anything you want on there. But also, it makes it harder to go away, and it makes it easier for others to join in. And so, you know, as far as a solution goes, you know, as a parent, you know, advising parents, you know, talk to your kids, monitor their use of social media, think about when they should have it, when they shouldn't, what things they should be able to access. If my child is being bullied and harassed on a particular format on social media, I'm probably going to get them off that format. You know, I don't know, sometimes I can't understand why you continue to allow someone to abuse you and you stay there. You know, but, you know, so as far as a quick solution, there is no program that's going to end bullying, but I think we need to be vigilant, you know, with that professional development so that our staff knows it when they see it, respond to it, respond correctly and quickly when kids report it. Parents, again, telling their kids, you know, not to be a bully, but also not to be a victim of bullying. And, you know, so I think it's just a constant, you know, vigilance that we all need. But there's no program or training that's going to make it go away, I'm afraid. But also character education, so maybe fewer kids tend to be bullies. We can always, you know, work on improving that.
I'm also hopeful with the expansion of our pre-K programs, because we really do focus a lot on our social emotional needs for our youngest learners coming in. We really see, you know, and research will show that 90% of brain development happens by age 4 or 5. So if we can get our kids in earlier and begin to work on that social emotional skills and how we get along with others in a social environment, in a social setting, you know, hopefully with that early intervention piece will be something that's helpful. Again, it's not going to solve everything, but it's going to be another step to helping support some of the needs of our students.
Well, we have them for what, 7.5, 8 hours a day. It should be the best part of their 24 hours, and for some, I fear that that's not the case. So, and maybe pre-K is going to be the place where,
hopefully,
if the emphasis is on socialization and social skills. Mrs. Fisher.
A lot of times I think we hear bullying and we think of little kids shoving each other, tripping, stealing their lunch. But I believe as children progress through school, the bullying becomes more serious. And at high school, even sinister. I mean, we've heard stories of high school students committing suicide because they were bullied. And we hear talk that some of these shootings that are happening are because people have been bullied or mistreated in one way or another. There is a 13-part series or movie, I think it's Netflix is running it right now, called 13 Reasons Why. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not. But I think that's something every high school counselor should watch. It just tore me apart. You just don't realize what some of these kids go through, because at high school they're less likely to tell anybody, except maybe their best friend. But it's a raw movie. I can't go into details about it, but I really recommend it for anybody that's concerned about bullying. It is long. It's 13 reasons, and they're broken into hours, so each one's about an hour long, each episode. But it really shook me up when I saw it.
Oh, I thought you were pointing
No,
for me to
just-
see someone
no,
else.
thank you.
Mr. Gesford.
What kind of professional development that are we providing now that it's different than what we've had in the past, because this is an ongoing thing, and you're saying we have professional development. So what new type of professional development are we having for our teachers, our staff, and how often are we providing that?
Teachers are required, well, staff are required to be given professional development at the beginning of the year on, identifying and reporting bullying and harassment. And they're required to sign off that they received it, just like they do with child abuse and bloodborne pathogens, all the required trainings. And then we try to do ongoing as much as possible, but that's what's required. And certainly if you feel that as a leader in your school that you have a particular problem or issue, or that it's starting to happen more frequently, then certainly you can contact Mrs. Handler, she is able to provide the training or additional training anytime that it's needed.
Is that training different every year? Are you updating it with new technologies and how to do things, or
It's
what they see?
updated on what's changed about bullying. For example, 5 years ago, I don't think it even mentioned social media, and now it's very, informative regarding that and the impact that it has.
One area that's really surfaced over the past few years is the trauma-informed care or trauma-informed practices. And what that looks at is professional development for teachers and staff, or anyone really involved with students, that when students are involved in trauma in their life, that statistically they're going to end up falling down a certain path. So the trauma-informed practices really look at a way to address some of those needs. Again, it goes back to the social and emotional piece of it. And that really has seemed to take a lot of hold the past few years in terms of professional development for staff and understanding what students need.
I know a lot of our elementary schools are working on just being kind, just being polite to each other. And I think it's important how teachers treat children. Teachers and staff members just being available to students, to be that almost counselor-like, not the same as our counselors would be, but to be that first counselor as a teacher, to create situations where students aren't put in easy positions to be bullied. Just a lot of simple things like that that I think are just common practice that we need to certainly work on and expand. But I know I've been in a lot of schools where they're definitely working on just being kind to each other, and I think that's some of the best way to combat some of this. And I think back to what Mr. Simler first talked about, our pre-K program. It is, fourth of what we're measured on is about socialization, and a lot of that is just manners and getting along with a peer and sharing and things like that. So I think for some of our kids, they've never seen that modeled from the time they were young. And I think that's where often we get some bullies. So I'm optimistic we can continue to battle it. I think it's just a challenge of society at this point. But we do take it seriously. We're going to continue to combat it.
Thank you,
Okay,
gentlemen.
thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Ms. Handler. Any other comments I wanted to make tonight? I had the opportunity last week, I think it was Tuesday and Wednesday, to go around and to announce and greet our 5 semifinalists for Teacher of the Year, or 5 finalists for Teacher of the Year. Kids were happy, the teachers were happy, I was happy just to be part of that. So we look forward to having our 5 finalists here at the next board meeting. And then obviously Teacher of the Year is this month, so we'll have the announcement of Teacher of the Year, and we'll have that individual back, I think the first meeting in May. Also this week we have a superintendent listening session. It's April 5th at Smithburg High School. I believe it starts at 6:30 in the auditorium. I invite the public, if you have any comments or questions for me, if you'd like to come out and suggest any type of programs or things we need to pursue, or have any other type of comments or suggestions for the direction of our school system, I'd invite you to come out at 6:30 on April 5th at Smithburg High School. With that completes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Michael. Next item on our agenda is personnel action. Dr. Bishop?
Good evening, Superintendent Michael, President Williams, Vice President Stauffer, and all the board members. As discussed earlier in closed session, there are several staff changes for your review, At this time, I ask for your approval of today's personnel actions.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Steffer. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. So the vote is on the personnel actions that were considered in closed session today. All those in favor? 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have some reports to the board, beginning with Mrs. Ardith Cade, our legislative representative, and Mr. Trotta, our chief legal counsel, are going to brief
evening
us
to all
on
of
what's
you.
happening in Annapolis.
As you can be assured, a lot is going on in Annapolis. They're just, next Monday night at the crack of midnight, the session will be over. And things that have been decided will be decided, and there will be things that have fallen by the wayside. And I'm happy to, I don't want to intimidate you by the pile of these papers that I've brought forward, but I do have quite a few things to tell you about tonight. Our two bills that are, have been heard on the one side in the Senate and passed the Senate have both been heard now on the House side. The votes in those committees have not yet taken place. We do not see that as a problem at this point, and we are checking, of course, on that. So those two bills, I think, will pass with considerable ease. They're non-controversial, they're local bills, they have the support of you and the county, the one of the county commissioners and so forth. So just to assure you that that is taking place. The one on reportable offenses, as we've talked about before, Senator Serafini is following through, particularly on the part of that has to do with students coming from juvenile services group homes, and is bringing together a group of people from juvenile services and the State Board of Education and several other people for us to be finding out what can be done in that regard, in those instances now, and whether there really needs to be legislation next year. That has been disappointing that the committees did not feel the urgency that we felt. I wrote in my written report about 3 bills that MABE has been working hard against, one of which has already passed. There's one about reading assessment, and that's not a bad thing, and MABE doesn't think it's a bad thing. But that bill is very, very prescriptive and seems to be coming from a certain testing company's programs and putting in all kinds of prescriptive things about the kind of assessment that must be done with this pre-K through first grade, and then with any children in the second grade who have appearing to be having reading difficulties. So that bill is going to go through in some form, but MABE is still trying to get amendments on that to make it less prescriptive. There are phrases in there like Norman rapid automated naming assessments, okay? Phonology awareness, okay? Maybe you all know what those are. I'm sure that I don't really have a good definition. The bill that allows disciplinary hearings to be the person being disciplined to ask for arbitration instead of that being a matter before the board has passed and is still on the floor. And there are still some amendments that MABE is trying to get into that would limit the situations in which that person could seek to have arbitration rather than have it be handled by the local board. But the bill appears to be passing. It is something that the unions have been supporting very strongly. And the other bill that the unions have been supporting very strongly that has passed provides a new mandatory subject of bargaining that gives the unions access to new employees for their opportunity to encourage them for union membership with this, especially because there is this Supreme Court case that's being heard in which that whole mandatory or agency shop sort of thing is being looked at. Also in this earlier, in the written report you got, there is school safety has come front and center, as we expected it would. And just yesterday, they threw out basically all of the bills that were in, most of which were very, very extreme, calling for an SRO armed in every elementary, middle, and high school, or requiring that every child in every school have a formal counseling session at least once during the year. Things that are financially unrealistic, as well as policy maybe not good. So they threw out one of the bills, crossed it all out, and rewrote it, and it is now the sort of the consolidated bill on school safety. And it looks like, and I read it last night, and because that's when it came out, and it looks like it's pretty reasonable and rational. It will require a good bit of each school system. But the Center for School Safety, which now exists, is being upgraded, expanded, and their role will become very prominent in providing training and so forth. You, and I say each school system, will have to establish assessment teams on behavior of concern. You'll have to have a school safety coordinator, and the SROs will be trained and certified underneath that, or in the cooperation with that person and the school safety and the law enforcement people. There's a whole lot of drills that you'll be required to have about escape or staying in, or, bit different to accommodate for different kinds of emergency situations. There'll have to be a safety evaluation of each school and emergency planning guidelines for each school, so that those will have to be individualized based on, if it was an open space school, or if each school will have different ways that they will be best able to protect their students. There will be annual reports on incidents. There'll be you must establish a mental health services coordinator, but there will be planning grants for some of these things. And there is a Safe School Fund, which will be grants to enhance school safety, and that will be in training and helping you do some of this thinking and planning. And there is some funding. It's still a little confusing, even with the MABE sheet, that there's $41 million of school safety money. Well, but some of that goes to the Center for School Safety, and some of it is contingent on this or that. So I don't want to try and unscramble that, but that will be, and of course this new bill hasn't passed. This just is going to be heard and rushed through. And so, again, we're looking at that. The MABE and PASAM both are taking it very seriously. And on the whole, it's reasonable, but it does create a lot of new responsibilities for every local system. But they're not responsibilities that you already aren't feeling that you need to take on the whole. I mean, school safety is so clearly something that is in everybody's mind. The not commissioned bill, which again is like, I can't tell you how many pages that one is. It did pass. It had been such a bipartisan bill. It incorporated virtually all the things that the not commission had recommended. It stuck in a few extras, which we really basically got taken out. But the thing that has made it less of a bipartisan bill is the fact that the Interagency Committee for School Construction will no longer be the final authority on the allocation of school construction money. The interagency committee is now going to be the interagency commission. It will have also an advisory commission, which will have people like MABE representatives on it. And it will be going through basically the same process, but there will not be a final meetings with the Board of Public Works and what was known as the Begathon and various efforts to convince the Board of Public Works that your project versus somebody else's needed to be approved. This was very controversial, and I know that Senator Serafini, who was a very committed member of the NOC Commission, was very unhappy with this provision. What it did was, I believe most of the Republicans ended up voting against the bill because of that. So here's a bill that 95% you agree with, but 5% you vehemently oppose, and you have to decide, which piece of it is going to control my vote. So I know it was a very tough time for a lot of people. The legislation to have a constitutional amendment relative to the money from the gaming industry that has just been sucked into the school budget, the Educational Trust Fund, that would make that money be outside of general money and not replace it, but supplement it. That lockbox concept is almost all the way through. It still has a final vote in the Ways and Means in the House of Delegates, but I do believe it's going to pass. The budget has been fully funded, and the budget was pretty non-controversial this year because there is extra money this year because of the new tax law and so forth. So, and then another bill that has, back on that, we expect that the governor will veto the bill, and there is time for the House and the Senate to override that veto before the end of the session next Monday night. So it's expected that the bill will go into effect with that new provision. Another bill that is on the governor's desk, but apparently he will sign it, is one which modifies the June 15th closing date and will allow systems to go up to 5 additional days after June 15th without having to go to the State Board of Education. And that's going to relieve some of these calendaring issues when you have a lot of snowstorms and windstorms and things that we've all been experiencing. The Kirwan Commission bill does have some future money in it, and it starts implementing some of the things that the Kirwan Commission has established as what should happen in our schools, and that is being voted on the Senate floor tonight, or today, and probably has already been voted on, and that will go through. And that will, as I said, will be a prelude to what's going to happen next year when we really get into the financing to make some of the recommendations of the Kirwan Commission really be able to be funded. And that's going to be a very different kind of situation than we had this year when money is not really the big issue. So there all right, we've been through all those already. And that one, and this one. So you can look that the pile is getting smaller. There is another money for schools that I'm not sure you'll get too much of because of the kind of bill it is, because you have taken care of your schools. This is a bill called Healthy School Facility Fund. And it's, again, on the House floor, I believe, today. And it would require in future years that the governor put in $30 million and that would go to schools for air conditioning, heating, indoor air quality, mold remediation, temperature regulation, plumbing, and windows. And again, this is unfortunately aimed more at the schools that have systems that haven't taken good care of their buildings. And of that 30 million, no more than half of it could go to one school system. The sponsors are from Baltimore City.
No kidding.
Surprise,
surprise.
The, that's that page, okay. There are 3 bills that appear, that have gone through the Senate and probably will, I'm not sure if they'll go through the House or not, on various aspects of apprenticeship and career technology education. And they're proposing a grant program for that. There's one that's helping college to be more responsive, and there's scholarship money. And so I don't know that any of these bills are magnificent or do a huge amount, but they really do emphasize the fact that there is a real changing philosophy about every child going to college, and that there's really the understanding that we need to be providing technology education for our students for whom that is the appropriate education. So those I'll tell you about next time if they pass. There's a bill on social media by educators, and this the state would establish a model policy, and then each jurisdiction would establish a policy about the use of media, social media, by teachers. And it does allow each jurisdiction to be different. It's not a statewide program that you have to have, your policy has to follow. But it also allows that teachers can, within your policy, can have a different response to how they want to use it. But the parents and so forth, there would be a form that would indicate consent to use social media in the classroom and in connection with school-related activities, and a model form for students, parents, and guardians to indicate to use their consent to use of social media in the classroom. So this could get kind of complicated. So I don't know that how much of a consent relationship you have on social media in the classroom for how the teacher is using social media. So do you have the policy already in place?
We do have
don't
a
you?
policy.
All right. I don't know if it does all the things this bill was going to have you do.
If the bill passes, we will have to make some minor adjustments to our policy, but we are way ahead of the curve on this particular matter.
Another bill is computer science education for everyone, and it would require that by the year 21-22, each county board will require each public high school in the county to offer at least one computer science course. And this originally had called for middle school as well, but I believe that part has been taken out. But it's also strengthening or establishing the Maryland Center for Computing Education, and that is going to be able to train your teachers and come up with all kinds of materials and so forth to strengthen the teaching of computer sciences throughout the state. And again, do you have computer science in every high school already? But hopefully this will be, there's to be $1 million a year in the budget, so that's not a huge amount, but that would be for this center. that will be strengthening. And it would provide training for teachers who are not comfortable yet teaching computer science. And it's not just restricted to high schools. It's encouraging computer training, from K through 12, pre-K probably through 12. There is a new bill that is in Judiciary, which is the committee that killed our reportable offenses bill. But this requires that if a teacher sees a situation of child neglect and fails to report it, they are in violation and can be guilty of a misdemeanor or conviction and to a fine not exceeding $1,000 or imprisonment not exceeding 6 months, or both. So this bill has seemed to be moving, but again, it's in Judiciary Committee, which often does kill off bills. And so, judicial proceedings over it's in the House side. And so that's if a person is required to provide notice of suspected abuse or neglect of a child, or make a written report of suspected abuse or neglect of a child under 5704 of the Family Law article, may not knowingly fail to provide the required notice or make the required written report if the person has actual knowledge of the abuse or neglect. And then there's it can be a violation if not done. And kind of in that same area, and there's a bill that has to do with teaching consent, teaching students in middle school and high school what it means to consent to sexual activity, and getting very fairly specific on that, so that there can hopefully be less sexual abuse, and that young people will be learning how to say no and how to say what they will know what constitutes sexual harassment and so forth. I'm understanding that touching someone's hair is one of the abuses, and that surprised me, but apparently that is, for many people, touching of that sort is not an acceptable thing. And finally, in the area we were just hearing about, in bullying, there's a bill that has passed that is about bullying, cyberbullying, harassment, and intimidation, civil relief, and school response. And it says that a victim of cyberbullying, or the parent or guardian of a victim of cyberbullying, may bring action for injunctive relief under this subtitle against the alleged harasser or the parent of that student. And there can be, they can call for restraining orders and so forth. And so this, I believe, is expected to create a lot of calls for injunctive relief. And that does give the parent a much stronger situation than even all of the good work that your people are already doing. This does apply to cyberbullying. It doesn't apply to other kind of bullying and so forth. But this bill, just in the past couple days, has passed, so I'm going to give it to you to give to those good, wonderful staff people who have to deal with this on a day-to-day basis. So those are the main bills that I wanted to mention to you today, and let you know that things are still lively in Annapolis, and it's always nice when we get to the last few days this season, there has not been, I think I mentioned this before, there are no bills that are so wonderful that we would be totally upset if they didn't pass, and no bills that are so awful that we would be completely decimated if they did pass. So we've been kind of in a framework. There's a lot of good legislation and there's a lot of bad legislation, but most of the bad legislation, frankly, has died. And so we're focusing on a few things now, and this last week, this school safety bill will be the big discussion and action. I'd be happy to try and answer any questions, if I haven't worn you out.
Any questions?
Always very complete.
Very
Well,
thorough.
It's
Very
been
thorough.
fun to have you so active on the MABE Legislative Committee. Some of you have come down to testify, some of your staff has come to testify, and Jamie and Tony are always right at the other end of the email or phone, and I rely on that very heavily and look forward to being back next month with a final report.
Thank you, Mrs. Kate. It's wonderful to have you working on our behalf in Annapolis.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you for the long drive up here, and be safe
I'll
going
be
back.
careful.
All right.
Yes, it rained all the way up until I got over the last mountain, and then the sun came out.
Oh, well, be careful in the dark. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trotta. Okay, continuing under reports to the board, we have board member committee reports. Mr. Rydner, would you like to begin down there?
The HR committee is scheduled to meet April 24th at 9:15 in the Washington room.
Policy Committee met on March 27th to work on two policies, one of which was the homework policy, which was approved on first read earlier in this meeting. The second one we worked on was policy INB, which deals with teaching of controversial issues. And we were joined in our discussion by Dr. Pugh, Mr. Akers, Mr. Sembler, and Mr. Kahunik, all of whom I'd like to thank for their time and their valuable information. We will be continuing on that particular issue along with some others at our next meeting, which is April 24th at 9:15.
Mr. Gessford.
Mrs. Williams, we were supposed to have our facilities committee meeting this morning, but we had to cancel that because we were at the State of the County meeting this morning at 7 o'clock. So it's been a long day, and as soon as I get with my colleagues, we will arrange for a new date to be announced.
Thank you. Mr. Bickford.
Our Finance Committee is planning to meet on Tuesday, April 24th at 11 a.m.
And Mrs. Murray.
The Curriculum and Instruction Committee met on Tuesday, March 27th. Supervisors of middle school, high schools, social studies, math, and science gave us an overview of the new textbooks they will be requesting we purchase. And I believe everyone received that email with the specifications. So you can look it over and then when they bring it to the board, bring your questions, please.
Thank you.
I think, if I can add to that, I think there's going to be a sample put on the website.
There's nothing in your music library.
There isn't.
And also a display probably in the lobby, but I don't know when.
Peter's not here tonight, but I believe those resources are available. I'm not sure where, though.
Mr. Diallo?
So I was gonna announce last time, but we had that snowstorm come up. So the new student member of the board is Chris Mackley from Williamsport High School. I'm happy about his election, and I'm gonna be prepping him up to take my spots come July. And the next week, we're gonna be sending a bus load of kids down to Ocean City for the annual MASC, which is basically the state student government conference that we go to every year. This year is going to be my 5th and last conference, so it's going to be fun and sad at the same time. But I mean, I'm excited for that, and we're actually co-hosting with Baltimore County, so we have I think about 20 students from our county and 30 more from Baltimore who are actually hosting the thing. So
Sounds fun.
All right, thank you. Okay, moving on to miscellaneous business. Under future agenda items, we have on April 17th, which will be our next meeting, we have an enrollment forecast for 2018 through 2027, and a request from the city of Hagerstown. Did we schedule, Dr. Michael, did we schedule healthcare update? I don't recall if we did.
We talked about it, but I think we're looking at,
Maybe
if we're
pushing
gonna.
that out a little
Yeah, I
bit.
think we have a couple of things we're working on at the same time with the healthcare update.
Okay, pardon?
What is the request of the city?
That's about the golf course, I
Oh,
believe. And then on May 1st, Mrs. Cade will be back to give the legislative briefing, and that will be post-session. So we'll be seeing her on May 1st. We had Dr. Michael, this will be of news to you, we had a little informal chat during dinner about the fact that most of us would be here on the 24th, next Tuesday, for committee meetings, and we thought that perhaps we could do a learning lunch to do an iPad professional development session for board members on the use of our new iPads. So for those of
So,
us can come at
April-
noon.
April 24th.
Next Tuesday at noon. Couple Tuesdays. I'm sorry, I'm saying next Tuesday as if it's
Yeah.
next Tuesday. No, 2 weeks.
3
Right?
weeks.
3 weeks.
Thank you.
21 days from today on the 24th at noon. As always, colleagues, if you have any suggestions for future agenda items, please let a member of the Agenda Planning Committee know. And I think that's it for future agenda items. That brings us to board comments. Mr. Diallo, would you like to start down there? You have nothing? Okay. Mrs. Murray?
On March 7th, I went to the Washington County Library to observe the junior and senior district level competition for National History Day, and I saw many outstanding projects, and it was depicting conflict throughout history. Very interesting. On March 14th, I went to the Museum of Fine Arts for the DAR Good Citizens Tea, honoring outstanding high school seniors. On March 26th, I was a guest reader at Hickory Elementary in Mr. G's 5th grade class and enjoyed that thoroughly. And then on March 27th, along with some other colleagues, I attended the Jonathan Hager Showcase of Learning, and it was about determination, people who showed determination. And so they had different characters throughout history, and it was very impressive, very impressive.
Mr. Pickford?
Nothing for me.
Mr. Stafford?
Want to commend Carol Costello for her diligence before the House Judicial Proceedings Commission, or Committee, when she testified about the reportable offense law. They kept asking the same questions over and over, and she did an admirable job of handling that. On March 27th, I went to Mrs. Palmer's class at Jonathan Hager. I wasn't able to attend their wax museum presentation that evening, so she said, come on out in the afternoon, and heard some of their presentations. It was about 1 o'clock till the end of the day, and then spent about a half hour on the 28th reading Dr. Seuss to Mrs. Shank's class, third grade class at Hickory Elementary School. And they were very attentive as I read The Cat in the Hat, and after that, some of the stories that I don't think they enjoyed, but I was kind of giving them by the lead teacher to kind of read to them, but they liked The Cat in the Hat. That's one of my favorite stories because the cat and his thing 1 and thing 2 cause havoc. And I like to cause havoc once in a while, so.
Mr. Kester?
I don't have anything, thank you, though.
No, I have nothing, it's just been a long day.
It has been a long day. Mr. Ridenour, nothing? And nothing for me. So with that, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for a good day.